Hi, my dear children. Welcome to today's English. The second lesson of our literature reader, The First Flight, Nelson Mandela, A Long Walk to Freedom. A Long Walk to Freedom is the autobiography written by Nelson Mandela. And what do we know about Nelson Mandela? Who is Nelson Mandela? Nelson Mandela was the first black president of South Africa. Nelson Mandela is a Nobel Prize winner for peace. Nelson Mandela was imprisoned for long 30 years fighting for the freedom of South African people. Nelson Mandela is also known as the father of South Africa. All these things you might have learned earlier, or you may know all these things. Today we are going to learn a small extract from Nelson Mandela's autobiography. Before starting the lesson, there is an introductory part. In that part, a term is discussed. It is apartheid. Apartheid. What is apartheid? Apartheid is the discrimination on the basis of color and race. Apartheid is a social evil which was prevalent in many of the countries in ancient times. And South Africa was a victim of this apartheid for more than 300 years. For more than 300 years, white people ruled in South Africa and the black people suffered a lot. And about Nelson Mandela also discussed in the introductory part, and we also said that Nelson Mandela was the leader of African National Congress, which fought against this apartheid system, and the democratic election held in 1994, and Nelson Mandela was elected as the first president, and in the introductory part also it is given part of the BBC news published on 10th May 1994. In that news, Nelson Mandela, it was said about Nelson Mandela, who was the first black president of South Africa, and after more than 3 centuries of white rule, Mr. Mandela, the leader of African National Congress Party, won 252 seats out of 400 seats, and in the first democratic elections were held in South Africa. This news was given by BBC, and the news continues like this. The inauguration ceremony took place in the Union Buildings Amphitheater in Petrosia, and representatives and dignitaries from more than 140 countries participated in that inaugural ceremony. And the inauguration ceremony stretched out to the streets of South Africa, and both black and white people danced and sang together and celebrated the victory. So that was the introductory part given in the text. Now we are moving to the text part, or starting the text. It starts like this, and these are the words of Nelson Mandela himself. 10th May dawned bright and clear. For the past few days, I had been pleasantly besieged by dignitaries and world leaders who were coming to pay their respect before the inauguration. The inauguration would be the largest gathering ever of international leaders on South African soil. Nelson Mandela says, the 10th of May dawned bright and clear. The morning was bright and clear, and for the past few days I had been surrounded, or besieged means besieged, B-E-S-I-E-G-E-D. B-E-S-I-E-G-E-D. Besieged means closely surrounded by the dignitaries and world leaders. They were coming to pay respect to me and to congratulate me and to pay respect to me. The inauguration would be the largest gathering of international leaders ever happened in South African soil. Then, moving to the second paragraph, the ceremonies took place in the lovely sandstone amphitheater formed by the Union buildings in Petrosia. For decades, this had been the seat of white supremacy, and now it was the site of a rainbow gathering of different colors and nations for the installation of South Africa's first democratic non-racial government. The second paragraph says the ceremonies took place in the lovely sandstone amphitheater of Union Building. The amphitheater made by sandstone in Union Building. What is an amphitheater? Amphitheater. What is an amphitheater? An amphitheater is a building without a roof which has many rows of steps or seats, rows of seats rising in steps, like a stadium, like a open stadium of us. And it was built in the typical model of ancient Greece and Rome architecture. Okay, so that is the inaugural ceremony was happened in the amphitheater in Petrosia, and that amphitheater had been the seats or the supremacy of white people were seen in that amphitheater for more than centuries. For decades, those seats were occupied by white people only. Black people were not allowed to enter or sit or to take part in any ceremonies held in amphitheater. For the first time in the history of South Africa, both white and black people sat together to witness a ceremony which took place in amphitheater. Okay, that was a piece of joy for all the people of South Africa, especially for Nelson Mandela too. And he says, now it was the site of a rainbow gathering of different colors. Rainbow gathering. Why he is referring this as a rainbow gathering? Because all the people from from all the races are taking part in that ceremony. So both black and white people or all the people from all the races are given the same priority in the ceremony held there. And nations for the installation of colors and nations for the installation of South Africa's first democratic non-racial government. Why did all these people gather there? They were gathered there to witness the installation. Installation here means the inauguration of the South Africa's first democratic and non-racial government. People from South Africa, both black and white people from South Africa, and also people, representatives and dignitaries from or world leaders from many international, many countries were there to witness that inaugural ceremony. There we stopped today, and remember the three words we learned in this lesson. The first one is apartheid. Apartheid means discrimination based on the color or race of people. And besieged means surrounded by or closely surrounded by people. And amphitheater is a building, roofless building built with the seats arranged step by step like a stadium. Okay, these things we learned, and more on the next class we are going to learn Nelson Mandela's own speech and what he was going to tell in that inaugural ceremony. So that's all for today. Thank you.